Greetings everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm your host Captain Ryan. Today's video comes to us from Captain's Iron. And Captain's Iron is playing in the Tier 4 British battleship, the HMS Orion, here in World of Warships. As the battle gets underway, it's a Tier 4 maximum battle, and it's on the New Dawn map. It's also standard battle, which is somewhat good for Iron here, as that does mean he doesn't have to worry about a bunch of caps. Only has to worry about killing and worry about his own cap. If you find yourself in a low-tier battleship in this kind of battle, it's best to just kind of hover right around the center area near your cap, because generally speaking, the enemy team is going to try to push it from one of the flanks. They might even try to push it down the center, but if you can kind of stay right around your cap, it leaves you in a decent position to pretty much shoot at everything that tries to challenge it. It also leaves you in a decent position to effectively just go straight into the enemy cap, on a map like this especially, after you've dealt with the initial wave attack, usually the destroyers and cruisers, and then it allows you to start pushing in with your destroyers and cruisers leading the way, spotting for you. Now, Iron is headed down towards where the sea cap point would normally be on this map, and because this map's orientation is kind of weird, that means he's headed directly east, as opposed to, say, headed north or headed south. It is just kind of a weird orientation for the map positioning. And Iron is already being detected. Now, the Orion does not have the best concealment of battleships. In fact, her concealment there, as you can see, is not much better than her gun range. So that's something to consider if you're going to play this ship. You can expect to be detected pretty much right within your gun range. So if you're spotted, it means you can shoot at whatever's spotting you. It also means that other battleships and potentially other cruisers probably going to spot you as well. Iron gets shots out there to destroyer, manages to land several good high explosive hits, knocks out a couple of modules, sets a couple of fires on that destroyer, probably instantly popped his repair ability to get that back up and running. It's not likely at low tiers that people have fully trained captains that have the last stand skill already selected, especially if they're new players. If they're veteran players, they might have them, but generally speaking, that's not going to be the case, so they're going to hit that repair right away. Now, I do notice that Iron is not using premium consumables, and I absolutely cannot recommend using those enough. Yeah, it might be low tier, and yeah, they might seem expensive, 22,000 credits a piece. But even at low tier, they're very important, and they can certainly save your butt in a battle, especially that damage control ability. Get that in the premium and reduce the length of time between using it, because when you're playing against British battleships, having those guys set you on fire repeatedly gets really, really annoying really quickly. And this is what Captain is doing. You'll notice that he is putting out the high explosive almost exclusively. Now, you see this a lot in low tier British battleships. A lot of people tend to spam that high explosive. I liked the armor piercing because I could get semi-reasonable, consistent armor piercing damage. Of course, you gotta know what you're shooting at in order to get the maximum out of that. Now, Irons slows down almost to a stop here. I think he was trying to continue getting shots out on that battleship that was kind of trying to hug that island there to continue setting him on fire. And as you can see, that battleship is definitely still on fire as Iron's damage counter continues up. But as he stops right when enemy CV comes in with an air attack and drops a load of torpedoes. Now, he was fortunate in the respect that the friendly battleship was the target there and crossed in front and, well, ate 4 of those torpedoes for him, so he avoided eating additional torpedoes there. However, if you're looking around and you see those aircraft coming in at ranges less than, say, 6 kilometers, you should probably pick up the speed and continue to begin maneuvering and start thinking about your maneuvering plan. Are you going to turn to port? Are you going to turn to starboard? Which way is going to be best to you? Do you have to expose your broadside? And you got to think about these kinds of things, because as a carrier player, even at low tiers with manual drop, just look how easy he managed to put rounds, or in this case torpedoes, into that friendly ship who was moving. How easy do you think it would have been to nail Iron here, who was stopped? Still though, fortunately, Iron not the primary target, and manages to avoid that. British battleship showing British battleship ability, which is to recover a lot of health. Now, low tier, it doesn't seem like that's really any better or worse than you would expect, but I like that Captain's Iron is actually using that ability early on. Now, with the repair ability on the battleship, the premium one, what that's going to do is that's going to give you an extra heal. And that, I find, is also very important, because it allows you to get stuck in there. It allows you to move forward and absolutely get stuck in there and cause some significant problems for the enemy. And then you can repair it up and then go do it again, and nobody expects you to be able to tank damage like that. Friendly destroyer has laid a smokescreen for Iron, and that's something that you don't see at low tiers often. Destroyers being team players. At high tiers, maybe, depends on what the destroyer is. But very good destroyer player there, laying a smokescreen for the ship that is, well, still mostly full health. So he's able to sit in the smokescreen for a little bit and effectively put rounds downrange with a full broadside and be unmolested in this endeavor. Now, in this particular case, the high explosive is going to continue to set those fires. But once you've got like 2 or 3 fires set on a ship, if he's still broadside like that, switch over to the armor piercing and put some armor piercing downrange and just start causing some significant problems. Like that battleship in the distance there is broadside on. You could probably land a solid armor piercing hit onto him. But you'll notice Captain continuing with the high explosive. And this is actually a chief complaint that a lot of people have about the British battleship players, is they never switch to armor piercing, even when fighting against cruisers. Just continue to use that high explosive. And the high explosive will certainly wreck low tier cruisers, especially the French cruisers, because of their lighter armor. The armor piercing will guarantee those citadels and will certainly cause a significant amount of problem for a low tier cruiser player. Even a mid tier cruiser player, if you find yourself up tiered, the armor piercing on the Orion is not bad, and it can certainly penetrate a tier 5 battleship, but you're not going to get any citadels with it. However, you are going to get a nice amount of penetration damage. Now, Iron's putting out shots at pretty much the only thing that's visible right now. It's battleship all the way in the back here, kind of at the max end of his range. He's set him on fire a few times. It looks like the guy's not burning anymore, so he's got shots out there with the high explosive. Gonna try and set him on fire again. As you can see here, he does manage to do just that. The enemy team is currently down on points and down on ships, but not by much. They're only behind by 1 ship. However, they've lost both of their destroyers. Iron's team managed to start off the battle with a destroyer advantage, having 3 to the enemy's 2, which gave them a slight advantage from the get-go, but that's really not saying much. It really comes down to and depends on how good of a destroyer player these destroyer captains are. But now that the enemy team has lost both of their destroyers, this pretty much means that no matter what destroyer you're in, Russian, German, Japanese, American, you can effectively go ahead and get forward and not have to worry about being spotted by something sneakier than you. And that's going to give you a good position to either A, set up for a cheeky and sneaky ambush run from behind an island. This map is certainly good for that. Or B, let you get up forward and start spotting targets for things like Captain's Iron in the Orion, who can start putting out shots downrange and cause some significant issues. And Captain's Iron has managed to earn himself a high caliber from all of the fires he's already managed to set. Just look at the number of fires he's got going on here. It's ridiculous at low tier, and he's still managing to tack up that damage. But it looks like all the ships that were on fire have finally put those fires out. Now the enemy carrier player has started dropping bombs. He's decided to start taking a real keen interest in Iron. He's getting a little close, and he's still mostly full health, and I'm actually kind of surprised by that he's opted to go for him and not somebody else. Yeah, I understand it's a manual drop, it's a lot easier to hit a battleship, but even in a carrier player, go for the kill on what you know you can kill, and not just starting to try and rack up damage. Because as you can see here, Captain's not even using his damage control, he's just using his repair ability to negate the effects of that fire. Now this battleship, again, he's border riding, but he's kind of broadside on it. At this kind of range, he definitely can use that armor piercing and secure high damage hits and manage to finish off that battleship, probably sooner with fewer fires. But it doesn't matter, Iron manages to kill him anyway by setting an additional fire and putting all those shots into him. Now, I'm not sure if Iron is running this Captain with inertia fuse high explosive. It would surprise me if he is, but I think the British battleship line would probably benefit from that skill. Normally it's a skill you see with cruisers, especially high tier cruisers, that use that to deal with battleships and better armored cruisers, especially if they're bow tanking you. But I think with the British battleship line, you can cut back that chance for fire just a little bit, since the chance for fire is so ridiculous. And you can use the inertia fuse high explosive and effectively penetrate the armor and belt and bow armor of cruisers and battleships without too much issue. Now, Captain tries to get more shots down, doesn't quite manage to set a fire on that battleship before he disappears, but you'll notice he switched focus to the other battleship that was very low health, that he's been picking on most of this battle for the last several minutes, who disappeared off towards the map border, put the fire out, has now come back into range. So Iron is going to go ahead and try to get shots out on him. But this is something that I want to point out here. As you can see here, enemy carrier getting those planes in. Now Iron has slowed way down and he's turning in. Is he going to torpedo beats it? Yes, he manages just barely to avoid a torpedo on the bow. That's probably going to aggravate the carrier player. The anti-aircraft on the Orion is not particularly good, so it's always nice to be able to maneuver and avoid. Now Iron gets shots off at that battleship there, and the first shots there, they don't manage to connect. And you'll notice where he aimed them. He aimed them at the bow, which isn't where this guy was going. You can always tell the direction an enemy ship is traveling by the direction the smoke is coming out of their stacks. Now if they're straight onto you, bow onto you, it's very, very hard to see, as this ship is basically going to turn bow on. It's going to make it very difficult to see exactly which direction he's going, but if he was backing up before, you could probably assume that he's continuing to back up. So Captain is going to go ahead and he's going to use this island as some base concealment, but he's still being spotted here by the enemy planes. And we know where the enemy carrier is. He's right there. This battleship, very, very low health. Come on. All you got to do is land one hit. Set one fire. Literally anything. And this guy's done. So are we going to be able to see that? Shots out there. Second salvo out. First salvo manages to connect. And because most of the damage that Iron manages to do on that ship was fire damage, when he kills him, he gets the Arsonist Award for finishing him off, mostly causing fire damage to him. But of course, Iron has also received a Witherer medal in the process too, and that is something that you really don't see at low tiers. But it's a British battleship, and Iron has been firing mostly high explosive, setting an inordinate amount of fires. However, that being said, it's still something that you really don't see, considering you have to cause at least 60,000 damage in fires and flooding. Not just damage total, just in fires and flooding, and that is not even an easy task at high tier unless you're in very, very specific ships, like the Zhao, like the Conqueror, like the Henry. Even if you're in a destroyer, it can still be difficult to set those fires, especially with high tier players playing with those premium consumables, playing with the various captain skills, in order to set enough fires and cause enough fire damage to land yourself those hits. Now this Wyoming is not having a good time here. He's basically surrounded by both of the destroyers on Captain's team, and he's taken a pretty nasty beating from Iron himself with that high explosive. The Wyoming, however, is absolutely one of the battleships that if it's broadside onto you in a British battleship, absolutely shoot the armor piercing, because Wyoming, she doesn't have a turtleback armor scheme, and she will be citadeled. Doesn't matter though, Wyoming's dead. And now it's down to just one ship on the enemy team, and that's going to be a stock Miyogi. Ooh, stock Miyogi. Never a fun ship to play. If you've gone up the Japanese battleship line at all, you'll know the pain and suffering that this Miyogi player has got. Now, Iron manages to set this guy on fire, and this person immediately puts that out. He's got the health he could have spared. He could have burned that a little bit, and if you're dealing with playing against, say, a British battleship or two firing high explosive at you, probably best to just let that first fire burn, because the second fire that's going to hit you is going to burn even longer, and then they'll probably just set you on fire a third time, which means you'll have two fires burning on your deck instead of just one. Now, this Miyogi is trying to stay alive desperately, but at this point in the battle, it's really not likely to happen, since he's effectively surrounded on all sides. He's got an enemy battleship to the north, he's got enemy battleships to the south, and he's got destroyers closing in. Plus, he's got somebody, destroyer, likely, capping his base, so he's not having a good time of it. Now, again, he's turning broadside on, and again, in this kind of situation, it's a Miyogi. You could absolutely switch over to the armor piercing here, and you could absolutely cause some serious armor piercing damage, because just like the Wyoming, it doesn't have a turtleback armor scheme, and so without that turtleback, shots coming in at close range or at long range absolutely will cause penetrating damage and probably even citadel damage. So who's going to get the kill on this? That Miyogi's almost dead. Nope, it's not Captain. Sorry, sir. 3 kills is what you're going to have to settle with. However, 161,000 damage in a tier 4 maximum battle is very impressive. And of course, all of the fires set there. Arsonist, Confederate, Witherer, and High Caliber in that game. And of course, with a medal count like that, with those 3 heroic medals, especially the Witherer and High Caliber, you can expect top of the team for XP earned at 1,300 base XP. Might not seem like a lot, but remember, it was a tier 4 maximum battle, and the next nearest guy on his team was 400 points below him, with most of the team not managing to break even half of Captain Iron's score. Anyway, that's it for today's video, folks. If you liked the video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, you can do so by liking and following me on Facebook. If you'd like to help support me in the channel and receive additional perks and benefits, you can do so by becoming my supporter on Patreon. If you've got a replay like this one that you'd like to see featured on my channel, you can do so by sending it to my email. And if you'd like to watch me play various games live, including World of Warships, you can do so by following me on Twitch. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.